I sat quietly at the far end of the long mahogany table, my fingers loosely wrapped around a crystal wine glass. The soft clink of silverware and laughter coat around the lavish dining hall, but to me it was just background noise. Nathan, my husband, raised his glass high, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Well, here is to another month of what should we call it, sweetheart? Creative unemployment," he said with a smirk, locking eyes with me. His friends, senior executives in tailored suits, burst into laughter. Nathan leaned back, smug. "Maybe you should apply as a receptionist. Isabella. A desk job would suit you nicely." More laughter followed, cold, sharp, and meant toasting. I lowered my eyes, letting the flicker of a smile tug at my lips. Let them laugh. They had no idea who I really was. My name is Isabella Hayes, and to them, I am the quiet wife of a powerful man, a woman with no visible job, no purpose. But what none of them knew is that I am the founder and chief executive officer of Hayes Technologies, the same empire they think they run, the same company they brag about building. Tonight they see me as weak, but tomorrow I will remind them exactly who I am. When I met Nathan, he seemed perfect, smart, ambitious, effortlessly charming, and I let myself fall fast. What he never knew was that Hayes Technologies was already alive. A late-night vision fueled by grit and code. I wanted to see who Nathan truly was without my success in the picture. So, I hid it all. Told him I was a struggling freelance financial consultant, rented a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old car, lived simply despite what I had built. He never questioned me. At first, he was kind, encouraging. We got married, and for a while it felt real. But as time passed, Nathan changed. His tone turned sharp, his eyes dismissive. Private jabs became public mockery. What once was support turned to subtle scorn. I should have left, but I stayed and watched. Watched him rise at Hayes Technologies, unaware that I was the one signing off on his promotions, that I held the pen to his future. He and his friends strutted around like they owned the place, sipping designer coffee, showing off expensive watches, blind toe where their power truly came from. The more Nathan belittled me, the more his mask slipped. I saw him for what he really was. Not a partner, but a man obsessed with control. His need to dominate, especially over me, turned my quiet tolerance into silent resolve. The more Nathan mocked me, the more invisible I became in his world, and the more power I quietly regained. While he flaunted his titles and made backroom jokes at my expense, I listened, learned, and took notes. Nathan had no idea that his arrogance would become my greatest weapon. He spoke freely of home, letting slip small details about questionable deals. Late-night calls with hushed tones, shady language, vague references to offshore accounts. I never confronted him. I did not need to. I recorded, I remembered, and I prepared. I began assembling a private team made up of people I trusted: analysts, forensic accountants, cybersecurity experts. Each of them brought in underlayers of confidentiality and purpose. We worked quietly, uncovering the cracks in Hayes Technologies. Behind Nathan's rise was a growing pile of rot, corruption, embezzlement, backdoor deals with competitors, money funneled through shell companies, and cover-ups designed to protect the powerful. What started as a suspicion turned into undeniable truth, but I still was not ready to strike. I wanted to see just how deep it went, to feel it from the inside. So, I did something bold. I created a new identity. Emma Brooks, an ordinary woman with a humble background and a fake resume, looking for an entry-level position at my own company. Walking through the lobby as Emma felt surreal. I knew the scent of the coffee, the shine of the floors, the rhythm of the place. But this time, I was not. Entering through the executive elevator, I was just another applicant clutching a basic folder, hoping for a break. The interview room on the 7th floor was small and clinical. 3 men sat at the table, Nathan's closest allies. I recognized them instantly, but they did not recognize me. Their arrogance made sure of that. The moment I walked in, the condescension began. One barely glanced at my file before sneering, "Unemployed for over a year. Is that correct?" Another leaned back and crossed his arms. "You think this is the right place for you? We receive hundreds of qualified applications." The third scrolled his phone, smirking, clearly amused. I kept my voice soft, my expression uncertain. I let them think he was beneath them, and they embraced the illusion. For 15 minutes they took turns belittling me, pretending it was constructive criticism when it was really just sport. Not once did they ask about my skills. Not once did they care what I could offer. To them, I was nothing, a powerless woman looking for a job. What they did not know was that E was the woman who had signed their checks, promoted their teams, and protected the company they were quietly destroying. When I left the room, my head was down, my body language defeated. But inside, I was burning. I had seen the rot firsthand, and it confirmed everything I had feared. Nathan and his circle had not only corrupted the business, they had poisoned its culture. Their entitlement and cruelty were systematic. They preyed on silence, thrived on fear, and crushed anything that did not serve their ego. I could not allow it to continue. I returned to my quiet role at home, nodding, smiling, listening while Nathan bragged about his control at work. He mimicked Emma Brooks at the dinner table, not knowing. He was mocking me. He thought he was untouchable, and that belief made him reckless. But I was almost ready. The trap was nearly set, and the weight of truth was building behind me like a tidal wave, ready to crash. The morning of the board meeting arrived crisp and clear, the kind of morning that almost dares you to feel powerful. I walked into Hayes Technologies, not as Emma Brooks, not as Nathan's silent wife, but as myself, Isabella Hayes, founder and chief executive officer of the company that bore my name. For the first time in years, I did not hide. I walked through the front doors with purpose, letting the weight of my presence settle over the lobby. Employees passed without noticing who I truly was, but soon they would. The boardroom was a cathedral, of steel and glass. Its long oak table had witnessed decisions made without me for too long. Today, I would reclaim my voice. One by one, the executives entered, casual, confident, unaware of what was coming. Nathan and his inner circle arrived last, still laughing among themselves until Nathan saw me. His eyes froze, his smile faltered. Confusion replaced his arrogance. "Isabella, what are you doing here?" asked. I smiled. "Sit down, Nathan. You're going to want to hear this." The room quieted. I placed a thick folder in front of me, my voice sharp. "Before we begin, I would like to reintroduce myself. My name is Isabella Hayes, founder and chief executive officer of Hayes Technologies." Gasps rippled across the table. Nathan's face twisted in disbelief. "This has to be some kind of joke," he muttered. "It is no joke," I replied, clicking the remote in my hand. The screen behind me came to life, flashing document after document. Email chains, wire transfers, surveillance footage, voice recordings. It was all there. Every corrupt deal, every stolen dollar, every secret arrangement, every abuse of power exposed. Nathan's face drained of color. His allies shifted uncomfortably, their silence louder than Daniel. "For the past 2 years I have gathered proof of your misconduct." I said clearly, "You got away with it because I allowed it." Nathan slammed his fist on the table. "You cannot do this. I am the vice president. I built this company. You built nothing." I said calmly, "I built this company. I hired you. I gave you everything. And now I am taking it back." I signed each termination letter in front of them, sliding the papers across the table. "Effective immediately, you are all terminated." For a moment, no one moved. Then Nathan exploded. "You think you can erase me? This is my company, too." Security entered quietly, standing by the door. I looked Nathan in the eyes. "No, Nathan. It was never your company. It was always mine. Now it is. Time for you to leave." One by one, they were escorted out. Nathan resisted at first, shouting empty threats, but no one stood with him. His friends had turned away, their loyalty crumbling as fast as his reputation. I did not watch him leave. I just sat still, letting the silence settle. The air felt lighter, the room cleaner. The rot had been removed, but it knew this was only the beginning. Taking back my company was one thing. Rebuilding it was another, and I was ready for both. In the days that followed Nathan's removal, the energy inside Hayes Technology shifted. What had once been a place of silent fear now hummed with cautious hope. I wasted no time. The leadership structure was the first to be dismantled. Anyone who had enabled the corruption, whether through silence or complicity, was gone. This was not about protecting egos. It was about restoring purpose. I began reaching out to those who had been pushed aside. Talented voices that had once made the company great. One of them was Lisa Chin, a brilliant engineer forced out for refusing to conform. When I called her, she hesitated. "Are you sure you want me back?" she asked. "I don't just want you back. I want you to lead," I replied. Seeing her walk through the front doors again, head high and eyes focused, was a moment I will never forget. And she was not alone. Dozens of former employees returned, not just to work, but to rebuild together. I wrote the company policies from the ground up: zero tolerance for harassment, anonymous reporting channels, mentorship programs, especially for women and minorities. Town hall meetings were introduced where every voice, regardless of title, could be heard. Training focused not just on output, but on ethics, empathy, and real leadership. The fear that had poisoned the culture began to lift, and in its place came something better. Collaboration, purpose, trust. A month after the overhaul, I walked past the break room and saw Lisa and her team deep in discussion, animated, excited, their whiteboard filled with ideas for a new AI platform. Their energy reminded me of what this company was meant to be. Hayes Technologies had become more than a business. It was once again a community, and I knew we had turned the page. As word of Nathan's downfall. Spread. The headlines were brutal, dissecting every detail. His name, which once held power, now drew ridicule. His allies filed for bankruptcy. His family life unraveled. Nathan himself took a job as a retail salesman at a small electronics store. Far from boardrooms and influence, he wore a cheap polo shirt, a name tag on his chest, a shadow of the man who once tried to dominate me. A friend who saw him told me he looked hollow, barely speaking as he rang up items. I was asked often if that brought me satisfaction. The truth is, it did not matter. This was never about revenge. It was about restoring justice for myself and everyone else who had suffered under that toxic reign. Yes, exposing Nathan was necessary, but the real victory was everything that came after. 6 months later, I stood by my office window, watching the lights of the city stretch out in every direction. Hayes Technologies was thriving. Our AI research, led by Lisa, had created a revolutionary platform. We had just signed a major deal with a European firm. But what stayed with me most was simpler. It was the way people walk through the halls, heads high, eyes bright, laughter returning. The silence that once haunted us was gone, and in its place was life. Sometimes late at night, I would remember the woman I had to become to survive the quiet wife swallowing wine and humiliation, pretending to be small so others could feel big. But those memories now felt distant, like watching someone else's story, because I had grown. I had reclaimed not just a company, but my own worth. True power, I had learned, is not about vengeance or control. It is about lifting others, building something real, and refusing to let anyone write your story for you. I was Isabella Hayes, and this was only the